take it away. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Well, hi, everybody. Good morning. We're so glad to be here. I'm Michelle Hilton. I actually am the Vice President, Marketing Director for Southlake and Colleyville. We have a location in Southlake, and that's where Laura and I are. Laura James is our manager in our Southlake office. She's been in the business a long time, and she can kind of tell you a little bit about her background. But at Independence Title, I just want to let you guys know we have so much training and we have so many classes to offer. We've got anywhere from like Canva to contract classes to different things. So, reach out to me. I'll leave my information in the chat. We have some really great marketing pieces. We've got listing packets and buyer packets and just reload packets, anything, open house packets. We have a lot of information to send you. We've got social media information. If you're trying to build social media and get out there in front of your clients, we have lots of things like that. We also have two really great attorneys, Matt Schultz and Dustin Keller. They're there to answer your questions, maybe do some language for your contracts and things like that. So I can send you a lot of information. I'm just going to give you my cell number and my email in the chat. Please put it down and let's get together. I can do a one-on-one, have coffee with you, or even do a Zoom if you're more comfortable with that, and just sit down and show you all the tools that we have here at Independence Title. We would love to earn your business, and we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. But I'm going to hand it over to Laura James. She's an escrow officer in our Southlake office, like I said before, managing and been in the business. How long, Laura, have you?
Just a few.
You might not want to tell.
Yeah, 31 years.
So anyway, so we've got a presentation for you. We're going to go ahead and share our screen. Laura, meantime, you might want to give them a little bit, about yourself. You've been in the business 30-something years.
Yes.
She started as an assistant and worked her way up. And she's been here in the Southlake office for a little bit and managing our office. And it's a really great location. So anyway, you would just take it over?
Yeah, I'll take it over. Hi, guys. Everybody warm in their nice little homes, probably don't have to get out in the cold, which was nice for today, right?
Yes, it's freezing.
Okay, I'm just going to jump right into this. I don't know how new y'all are or how much experience you have, or if you've even done a closing yet.
Laura, this is our agent basics class. So it's a pretty,
Okay.
it's a group of agents that are either getting back into the business or are newer to the business. So the basics are great.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to start with this. We call it a flow chart. It's called contract to closing. So once you get the contract, it kind of tells you how it flows between really us as the title company. And this is going to be on a finance transaction, which the majority of them are, and how it flows through the mortgage company. So if you look on the left side of the contract to closing flow chart, you'll see where it starts with the contract. And then it goes up and down. So it starts up with the title company and our process, and then down with the mortgage company. And as you can see, we're both working in conjunction with each other. So that we're doing our processes, the mortgage company's doing their processes. And then ultimately we join together. You'll see the green star when everybody agrees to close, which we hope happens, of course, and then how it gets to the finish line. So our slides are going to kind of walk you through a little bit of this process and how that flows, again, from beginning to end. Questions? Do y'all just jump out there?
Yeah, and please jump out. We want you guys to unmute yourself. This is just casual. We want y'all to be able to ask questions along the way.
So this slide is about closing costs and who's responsible for paying what. I mean, it is all in the contract, but that's all that fine print, right? I'm sure everybody's read every word of the contract, right? Okay, y'all laugh at that. So the buyer's cost, seller's cost, it just kind of gives you an overview of what each party is obligated to pay in a standard contract. Of course, you can put other things in there if you want. There's some things that are negotiable. The title insurance policies, and it's marked, you mark it, seller or buyer's expense. You can have seller concessions in the contract, different things like that, who pays for the survey. But these are just some kind of the standard cost. And on that note, if you need a net sheet, you're negotiating a contract, you want to know some cost, I'm happy to do that for you. To give you an overview of what your seller or buyer might be looking at, more from a seller standpoint, because the buyer's costs typically come from the lender. The majority of their costs come from the lender. But if you've got a cash buyer, then absolutely I can give you the cost for that cash buyer if they need to know what they're looking at to bring to closing, or if the seller needs to know kind of what they're netting at the closing table as well. All right, we're going to start in with some of these documents. These come from the lender. The first one is a loan estimate that your buyer will get from their lender of choice. And it's to be delivered 3 days after loan application. So there's some time frames in these documents that I want you to be aware of. It gives the buyer, again, an estimate of cost. The very bottom of that page tells them an estimate of what they can expect to bring to closing. So just kind of review that, gives them their interest rate, their loan amount, things of that nature. So it's kind of an overview before they ever get to closing. All right, again, we're talking about time frame. So 2 weeks before closing, you want to confirm if there's been any changes with the lender, changes of the property with this bad weather, don't want any busted pipes or roofs that have been damaged due to hail or anything like that. You want to make sure the buyer selects their home warranty if they're getting one. Not every buyer does. It's usually in the contract, or sometimes they want one even though the seller hasn't agreed to pay for one. We do take care of getting those ordered, so we'll just need to know which company they want and which plan they want.
And doesn't your assistant usually reach out to them and let them know, ask them what? warranty?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They kind of walk you guys through this process too along the way.
And then 3 days prior to closing, the CD is called a closing disclosure with the lender. It's to be delivered to the buyer 3 days prior to closing. So if that gets delayed, then closing is going to get delayed. Now, that being said, the closing disclosure is not always a final figure. Sometimes it's disclosed to meet the 3-day requirement, and then it's finalized prior to closing as far as the amount they need to bring for closing. So just be aware of that. The buyer gets their CD from the lender and they sign off on it. It may not be a final figure. So they just need to be aware of that.
Laura,
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to.
No, please
ask
do.
you this just since you guys see so many closing statements, what's the general range that you're seeing for home warranties? I'm sorry, I'm going back a page, but.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We see anywhere on average on the low end, they're like $450. And then they can go all the way up. If you add a pool and all different types of plans, they can go up to, $700.
Are you seeing less of those now in this,
Yes.
seller's market?
We are seeing less of those.
Are buyers buying them on their own and just not asking the seller to pay, or
Rarely. We see
Okay.
some, but not very often.
Okay, cool.
Not very
Thank you.
often. Yeah. Okay, wiring instructions. Of course, wire fraud is a big deal in our industry these days. So wiring instructions, if the buyer wants to wire their funds, that's perfectly fine. We will only send wiring instructions direct to the buyer. We won't send them to you to forward to your buyer. We try to eliminate the possibility of email hacking or anything of that nature from y'all's end. And then we do require that they call, or we ask, I guess we can't require a buyer to do anything, can we? That they call our office and confirm those before they ever initiate their wire, just to make sure they didn't get changed in the transmission to them, just as a precaution. And then the other loan documents, of course, we're not going to close unless we have all the loan documents from the lender. So we keep everybody updated, especially as we get closer to closing, where we're at and if we're good to close and things of that nature.
I have
All
a
right.
question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I actually have a closing coming up supposedly on Tuesday with y'all.
Awesome.
And so the question I have is, I talked with the lender last night, and with Monday being a holiday,
Mhm.
we have not gotten the final CD. Well, I'm a little confused on it because it sounds like he has gotten the closing disclosure signed by the client.
Right.
However, he still has the file with underwriting at
Yes.
this point. So my curiosity is we've already delayed closing from the seller side, but is that going to be an issue now if we don't have that file back from underwriting to close on Tuesday.
Okay, so as far as delivering the CD, the closing disclosure, is that?
Well, as far as I know, he has the CD, the lender has the CD. We just don't have the final file back from underwriting yet. And so
Right.
I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to have to delay closing again for my buyer.
Yeah, so until the file comes out of underwriting, they have what we call a clear to close.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to close.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would think, and they would need to probably deliver that, get that today and deliver documents to the title company. Oh, you said it was with us, didn't you? And then depending on the time frame of delivery of documents would determine whether or not they could close on Tuesday. Monday's a holiday, so
Yeah.
we're closed. So it kind of puts a wrench in it for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really just kind of depends on the lender. Yeah, how quick they get it out of underwriting and get their clear to close.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Brian, after this, you can reach out to me and I'll find out where, what closure your files with. And I can check on that for you.
It's actually with April Davis is the one who's handling the
Okay.
closing for us. So
Okay, perfect. Good.
Brian, I'm sure you're doing this too, but I know you're already doing this, so I'm just repeating for my own sake, I guess. But I would just be sure to be the like gentle nag, and maybe at this point, the not so gentle nag with the lender, right? And just be.
I've been more than the gentle nag with him.
Okay, good.
I was gonna.
We've had
that's a
quite
good
the
suggestion.
conversation.
That's your job. That's your job.
Yes.
Good work.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, and the more help we can get from you guys as the agents to kind of nudge that lender along, the better off it's just going to be for all of us. So, if we have timeframes that we're trying to get documents and get the file ready to close, because there's some things that we have to do once we get those documents to prepare for closing. So they need to allow time for us to be able to get that ready as well. Okay, so talking about the closing disclosure, this next slide, it is a federal form. It replaces the HUD and the final truth in lending, which new people, y'all won't know what that is. It again has to be given to the borrower 3 days prior to closing. The lender does prepare it. It is prepared by the lender and it's delivered by the lender. Do you get a copy? Not always. I guess you could talk with each lender and see what their stance is on that. Everybody's a little bit different as to whether or not they'll release it to the lender. But of course, your client could always forward it to you once they get it if you wanted to review it. So just kind of be aware of that. All right, we're going to talk about the CD a little bit kind of in pieces. So this is the very top of the closing disclosure. It just gives information. Closing dates, the date the CD is issued, who the title company is, buyer and sellers, basic loan information. And sales price. So that's, of course, really important to make sure you didn't do an amendment to the sales price and didn't somehow slip through the crack, didn't get forwarded to us or the lender. So that's real important because we won't know that price changed unless we get that. All right, so the bottom of the closing disclosure this is on the first page. Again, it's an overview of the loan. So it gives the loan amount, interest rate, the principal and interest amount of the payment. Don't we wish it was, I thought that was $10 for a minute, $8.10. And then talks about if there's a prepayment penalty or a balloon payment. So again, just an overview of some of the terms. And then the very, again, towards the bottom of that page, it talks about their payment, if it adjusts, and the number, and then the total payment so they know what to expect, and then the monthly amount for their escrows for taxes and insurance. And then the very bottom of that page tells them, again, the cash to close, how much they'll need to bring to closing. It does have to be a cashier's check or a wire transfer. We can accept a personal check, but only up to $1,500. Texas Department of Insurance regulates that for us, and no money orders. Some people think they can bring money orders, no money orders. So cashier's check payable to Independence Title or a wire transfer.
And that's really good information because I feel like as a title company, we, let our agents know that and buyers and sellers know that, but I feel like some of the others don't do.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than somebody coming
Right.
to closing and whipping out their checkbook, gonna write
Yeah.
me a check.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't go over real well.
Yes.
I kind of cringe when I see that happen, that checkbook coming out.
I bet you with this generation, you get somebody trying to use Venmo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or crypto, right?
I will tell you though, if they get their cashier's check for a certain amount and their figure change, we can take a personal check for the difference as long as it's not more than 1,500.
Right.
And of course, if they bring too much, then we'll just refund the difference to them. So it's not life or death if they go, oh my gosh, that's not the amount of my check. We can
Right.
usually work through that. All right, so on the closing disclosure on this, we're gonna move to page 2, and you'll see in each category, the totals roll up instead of your totals at the top of the category instead of at the bottom, like typical math in my book anyway.
Mhm.
So this is the second page of the closing disclosure, and you can see the different categories, and the total is at the top of the category, even though the fees are listed underneath that. So it doesn't total at the bottom, like would make sense in my book, but again, government regulated. And so just kind of see how the fees are listed and that the totals roll to the top. Again, this is just kind of going down the rest of the fees that are on the closing disclosure. Again, this all comes from the lender. So what happens when the lender sends the closing disclosure to us? We take their fees, we populate any fees from us, like the title insurance premiums, any HOA dues, if there's a cost for a survey, anything of that nature. And so the lender and I will go back and forth to finalize the closing disclosure and know exactly what the buyer needs to bring for closing. So it's a back and forth a little bit between us and the lender. Of course, we want to make sure we collect your commission and things of that nature. The lender's more worried about the buyer side than they are the seller. Our responsibility is for both sides to make sure we have all the fees collected. So there's a full overview of the page 2. So you can kind of see it starts at the top and then it subtotals at the bottom. And again, these are just the closing costs. This is not the amount to bring the closing. All right, the top of page 2 talks about, kind of compares what the loan estimate said their costs were going to be and what the final closing disclosure said their costs were going to be. So just kind of giving them an idea of how close the lender was on their fees to know if, they were over or under what was expected. All right, so this goes to page 3. I feel like this form is a little bit backwards, but they didn't ask me again. So again, your totals are going to roll to the top. So you can see on this third page, it has your sales price and then your closing costs from the prior page. And then this one has some assessments, taxes, maybe, and the total rolls to the top of that category instead of the bottom, which is kind of crazy in my book. But, and then the next section, these are all credits that the buyer's getting. So again, their deposit would be their earnest money and option. Actually, earnest. Well, this one has the option separate. Sometimes it'll be separate, sometimes it's together because they're both delivered to the title company now. Their loan amount, whatever the lender is loaning them. There's a credit for the title policy. If the seller's paying for it, you'll see that credit. Same thing about a home warranty. Anything of that nature, you'll see here. There's also a credit from the seller for taxes this time of the year from the first of the year through closing. Buyer will get that credit as well. So you can see it totals at the top. All their credits are totaled at the top of that category, not at the bottom. And then again, this is an overview of that page. And at the very bottom, it tells them the total amount that was due. And then minus the credits they're getting, again, for the amount they need to bring to closing. Questions? Nobody?
Questions, anybody?
No, good.
No.
So at a typical closing, you'll sit down and the buyer's already seen this. So some buyers probably do want to go through it line by line with you. And some buyers are like, where do I sign? Right.
Right. Exactly.
And you'll do whatever the buyer wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll sit down and we can go over it line item by line item. And some are like, oh, I've already seen this. I'm good. Okay, sign here. You know, same thing. If you have a buyer that you think is going to want to read all the documents, if you'll give us a heads up ahead of time, we can email the documents to them where they can read them at their leisure and get their questions answered from their lender, because their documents, 90% of them come from the lender. There's a few that come from us. And that way closing goes much smoother, and they just sign and they're happy campers. Okay. All right, page 4, typically the closing disclosure is 5 pages, just so you're aware. Page 4 talks about what the taxes are for the year. Something that's non-escrowed maybe is HOA dues for the year. what your initial escrow payment is, and what the monthly is. So just, again, it's just information. And then page 5 talks about, this is the page nobody likes to look at. This talks about what you're going to totally pay back for the house with interest.
Yep.
All right, how much interest you'll pay if you pay it for the full 30 years. The APR is not their interest rate. So the best way I know to explain that is the lender's rate of return, including their costs that they're paying the lender up front. So if they were paying no closing cost to the lender, that APR would be the 4%, just like their loan was. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
All right, and then it gives the parties to the transaction at the bottom of that page. Title company, real estate agents, lender, has all contact information. Okay, so there is what we call an ALTA settlement statement. That's something that we prepare. It's a little friendlier in my book, and it gives a full overview of the transaction. So it has buyer's cost and seller's cost. And this is what you'll typically see me email out to you before closing. I don't typically send the closing disclosure because, again, that comes from the lender, but I will send this ALTA settlement statement to you for you to review to make sure I have commissions right. There wasn't an amendment for something that I wasn't aware of, things of that nature. I always like for y'all to review it. I won't typically send it to your client until you reviewed it, unless you say, no, go ahead and send it to them. I just like an extra set of eyes on it. Because unfortunately, you know, on occasion things get missed, and we want to make sure it's correct before it goes to your client.
Well, and I think that's really important that you stop and really look at this, because just like Laura said, every once in a while, maybe you have forgotten to send in an amendment, some things that were discussed that never got sent to the title company. So do get that set of eyes on this, because that way before it gets sent to your client and they're like, what's going on? You know, why isn't this on there? And different things like that. It's a great thing to have a set of eyes. I really, really look for that.
And I will tell you too, a big thing right now is leasebacks, of course.
Yes.
Seller leasebacks, temporary leasebacks. So some lenders will allow that as part of closing and some will not. So if you don't see it on there, you're welcome to question us. Hey, why is the leaseback deposit not on there, or whatever the case may be? We can definitely, typically I'm going to say, well, the lender won't allow it if it's not on there, and then it'll just have to be handled between the parties at that point.
And can the buyer, like, I mean, yeah, I guess the buyer brings a check to closing and leaves it for the seller to pick up.
Seller will leave it for the buyer because the seller's lease it back.
Oh, that's right.
Reverse
Sorry.
it. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
50-50 chance.
Yeah. Yes, they can. And we see that happen. All right. So yeah, this is just, it just tells you, go back to the one before that, Michelle. Okay. The ALTA settlement statement, just to give you an overview, ALTA stands for American Land Title Association. Okay. It is ledger style. I don't think we have one in our screens. We probably need to add that. It's very ledger style. It's buyer and seller on each, sellers on the left, buyers on the right. I had to think about that. And it's very credit debit. So it's very simple to understand versus the CD is, you know, totals at the top of the column instead of the bottom. And so the ALTA settlement statement will help you. And again, it is delivered. We try to, again, get it to you ahead of time, and there, you absolutely have a right to a copy of that. All right, the Texas disclosure is just another form that's signed at closing. We all love disclosures, right? We have a gazillion of them these days.
Yeah.
And it's just disclosing cost of title insurance, recording fees. And again, it's just something, it just reiterates some of the fees that are being charged that have to be disclosed. Well, I will tell you, we don't typically send that out ahead of time because all the fees are already disclosed on the ALTA settlement statement. So this is just a reiteration of that. All right, so just a little bit of highlights. Closing disclosures, there's a buyer's closing disclosure and there is a seller's closing disclosure. The seller's closing disclosure is prepared by the title company. Again, the ALTA settlement statement reflects the same information. So that's why we typically will send that out to you, because then you can look and see, especially say you have the buyer. Well, you know, the seller was supposed to pay for a survey. Well, did it get charged to the seller? Or did it get charged to the buyer? The ALTA settlement statement will reveal all of that to you. But there is a seller's closing disclosure that's signed at closing. The Alta, we've talked about that. It can be provided to you, and we've talked about the Texas disclosure. So it just breaks out some of the cost. Zocum. I'm gonna let Michelle jump into some of this wonderful marketing. Zocum you will love, and I'll let her take over for that.
Yeah, I love this. So this is a way that you can put your earnest money and now option, because they're together. You can actually upload it in this app. You can do this, or your client can do this. It is very secure. It's almost, it walks you, we can actually send you a booklet on this too. But once you get the app on your phone, it'll walk you through it. But it's almost like if you've ever deposited any money in your bank, of course, through your phone, where you take the picture. This is exactly how it works. It is secured like the banking, like you do at your bank. So if you take a picture of your check, it uploads this earnest money and option money. The other thing that this will do is upload your contract. So you can put your contract and your check in at the same time, or you can put them separate. It will mark it at the moment that you put it in. So let's say it's a Friday evening and you're running and getting checks and different things like that. This is a perfect example, because of course the title company is going to close at 5 o'clock. And instead of you racing across town, especially if it's far distance, then you can just upload this, put this in, and it will timestamp it at that time. So when they receipt the contract, let's say Monday morning, it will be receipted on Friday at 6 p.m. or Sunday, or whenever you decided to put that in. So it's a really great tool. It saves a lot of time. And especially if you have an out-of-town buyer, this is amazing for that. So it is very easy. It's a free app, and with Independence Title, it is free. Now, there are a few title companies that do use this. We had it exclusive for the first year, and then after that, they opened it up. But you need to make sure that if it's with another title company besides Independence, that they don't charge you a fee. We do not do that. Matt and Dustin have taken that fee out and pay it themselves. So I always want to let you know, because if it's with a different title company, which we hope it's not,
Right.
but they do charge you sometimes a fee. Some of them don't, some of them do.
And that's really good too, when you're on that timeline to get that earnest money
Yes.
delivered. I had an agent call me yesterday and go, "Oh my gosh, I don't know that I can get to you today. How can I get this check to you?" And I went, Zocum. And so walked her
Yep.
through that, which is beautiful, because then took that. She's like, "Can I do it?" I said, "You can do it. Your client can do it." And like Michelle said, if you have an out-of-state buyer, it's beautiful, because then they can just upload it wherever they are.
Yep.
And again, it's time stamped when it's delivered to us. So you've met your obligation under the contract if you're in a time crunch. And it can be a personal check. It can be a cashier's check, just no money orders,
No money.
no
Right.
money orders. Oh, were we on to?
Yeah.
Am I up?
You're right.
Oh, this just talks about Zocum again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just some frequently asked questions about Zocum. I think we've pretty well covered it. It is it's a great tool. It saves so many people so much time.
What percentage of the time are you guys getting your money through Zocum now?
Oh, way more than we.
Oh yeah, a lot. We get a lot through
A
Zocum.
lot. And I think that's one of the things too, because we always want to make sure everybody knows you don't have to have the contract with the money. Now, some do, some love to just upload the contract with the earnest and option money. But that's one of the questions I get too is, do we have to have the contract with this? No, you can upload that and then send us, email or whatever the contract in.
Yeah,
So-
because sometimes we'll get the Zocum earnest money and option before we have the contract. And then
Yes.
we start reaching out to people going, okay, is there a contract somewhere?
Yes.
Especially if your buyers doing it themselves, they probably won't have the contract readily accessible where they can upload it, which is perfectly fine.
And we can have a follow-up email, and I can send a booklet. I love, we have a little booklet about Zocum, and it will show you step-by-step how to load it on. And I like this booklet too, for you to save on your laptop or whatever, because if you do have an out-of-state buyer, this is a really great way to, especially if they're not, technology savvy. It's a great little booklet that shows them screenshots step by step. So you can send that to your buyer, out-of-state buyer, and let them, kind of do the step-by-step booklet. So we can follow up with an email with that information for you.
And just know too, normally when we reach out to buyers, we give them options for
Yes.
delivering earnest money.
Yes.
So of course, this is the most popular. They can wire it. Of course, we've talked about that, how we send those secure. And then we can also send them a FedEx label.
Yes.
If they want to FedEx it, some people are nervous about technology and nervous about wiring. So we can send them a FedEx label. They can drop it in FedEx and we'll get it the next business day. So.
Oh, good. Our app.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our real estate net sheet and closing cost app. This is a wonderful tool. Again, we have some information, and when we follow up email, I'll send you a booklet. This gives you so many options to do a net sheet, and you can actually do it on your phone. It is very easy, step by step. We've got also on this net sheet, you can email it to your client, you can text it to your client. There's so many different ways. We have classes that on this, CE classes, every single month. Independence Title has one of these net sheet classes, shows you how to do the app. But it's a very simple app to use, and it's very helpful. I know I had an agent last week that was in a home with a buyer, and she said real quick, a lot of times she'll call Laura for a net sheet, but she was inside the house with the client. It's very, how the market's going so quickly. She said, I just grabbed my app, put in my closing costs, and boom, we had it, because my client needed to know some of the, what are we looking at here? So it's a great way to get something really quick to your client. It is branded. It has a premium version, it has marketing information on it. I'll send you also a booklet on this, but I would highly, highly recommend you to get on this app. It's free, and then we have a premium version that's like $9.99 a year. And that's not our fee, that's Apple's fee, but that's for the premium version, where you can get a lot of marketing things that are branded to you. It's just a wonderful app, and I would love to, I can send you a link so you can download it. I can help you run through it. I can sit with you, teach you how to use it, but it's a really great tool, especially like even when you're looking at needing the title premium costs and things like that. It'll automatically do those for you. All you have to do is put in a sales price, and it calculates it right up for you. It's very, very simple. So I would highly recommend this app.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've used it. I've been in a grocery
Yes.
store, and one of my agents called me and said, I need a net sheet for blah. And I just jumped on the app
Yes.
and sent it to them.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not the most techie person. So I figure if I can do it, most
Yes.
anybody can do it. So it is an awesome app. Yeah. Highly recommend that you download that for sure.
Yes, and I can send you links on that, but it is called Independence Title Agent One. It's very easy to use.
Okay, just another, I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of, advantage of closing with Independence Title is that Matt and Dustin, the two attorneys that we have that are readily available to you guys, they will write special provisions language for whatever your situation may be. If it's not part of the contract, they will sit down and talk with you and go, okay, what is it you're wanting to accomplish? And they'll prepare an addendum, because it needs to be done by an attorney. And then they'll forward it to you to be signed and to put with your contract. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to them. They are awesome. They work like you guys work 24/7. So they are readily available to help you with any contract needs you may have. And these are just a couple of examples of appraisal issues, of course, are a big deal.
Yes.
So again, if it doesn't go in the parameters of even the appraisal addendum that's out these days, again, they can help write the language that you can attach to the contract. All right, multiple underwriters. This may not mean a whole lot to you guys, but it's real important. We have underwriters that write the title insurance, okay? A lot of companies only have 1 or 2 underwriters. We have 8. So the benefit of that is certain underwriters won't accept certain types of transactions, okay? Because of title issues or whatever the case may be. Sometimes estates can get kind of ugly in the title part of it. And so we can, what we call shop underwriters, because usually if one won't take it, we'll find one that will. So the benefit of us having 8 different ones that we can reach out to is a huge benefit to getting a transaction closed. Because if they're limited to 1 or 2, then they may not be able to close a transaction.
Right.
So,
And we had like an agent not too long ago. We had to end up because there was a death in the transaction and some lot of different things going on. So we had to shop that. And so normally it would have taken 90 days to get that closed. We got to shop it around to these underwriters and we found it for 30 days. So I know it's more behind the scenes, but just so you know, this is really important. And one of the great things that we think that at Independence Title that we have to our advantage is it does make our lives easier and your life easier. And sometimes you don't even know that we're shopping it to make the transaction a little bit smoother. But we do always like to let you know that is one of the advantages about closing with our title company.
yes.
Okay, so call, text, email will respond. So this is one of the things I want to click to this. This is Dustin and Matt. This is our 2 attorneys that we talked about. We would really highly encourage you to take these emails down, these phone numbers down. One of the great advantages is we do have 2. They're there 24/7. A lot of our agents, what they do is they'll put their numbers in their phone, and actually what they do, especially being a new agent, will put attorney by their name, because again, like you'll be on a Sunday and you'll be working with a client and you have a question and you can look them both up. You can text them both at the same time. They're very competitive. They like to answer the question faster than the other one. It's kind of hilarious, but so you can text them. They will text you back the verbiage, or they will call you, or they'll call your client. Whatever you're needing, they will do that. But I always encourage our agents to text them both, because if one's teaching a class or one's maybe out of town or something like that, then the other can step in. So it's a great, again, they do. And I have agents, new agents always asking me, how much do they charge? They charge nothing. We do this for our clients. This is something that we're very proud of. And again, they're very accessible, and they're also are very much like, will help you get to the closing table efficiently. That's kind of their job to do that. So I always want you to put their phone numbers, their names, and all that into your phone, because again, you're not going to need an attorney every day, but when you need a question and when you need them, you need them. So that's one of the things that we like.
And just know that they don't do other type of law.
Yes.
Like you're not going to find them in court one day. You can't reach them. None of that. I mean, their goal is real estate transactions, just like y'all's is. So I think that's a huge benefit, that you don't have to worry about not being able to reach them because they're in some court case that, is dragging on for weeks. So just know that.
So I think that,
Is that the end of our slides?
yeah, I think that's it. Do we have any questions?
I have a question, since I always, and I'm sure.
I love it. Good.
Do you guys have any, like, what are the best agents that you work with from a closer and a title company perspective? Like, what are the things that they're doing that make your lives better and their transactions easier? Do you have any tips like that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
No. That's a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. So mainly, I mean, a huge part is communication. So if we're needing information from their client, whether it's a buyer or seller, if they want to give us their contact information and we can contact them direct, that's awesome. Sometimes they want to do all the communication to their client, and that's fine too. But really the response time, sometimes things are pretty critical that we need an answer. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes like several emails and phone calls to get information sometimes that we need. And we don't want to delay closing because of something that we don't need, that we've needed from them. So really communication, feedback, I mean, response time is huge, just like it is for you guys from us. But yeah, if they let us go straight to the client and then we can, and just let the client know, hey, the title company's going to be calling you about this, this, or this. We have information sheets that go out to buyers and sellers right off the bat that gives us most of the information we need. So once they get those back to us, we're really, unless there's a hitch in the title or something that we have more questions, usually it goes pretty smoothly from
So
there.
communication, really, they're just.
Communication,
Well,
absolutely.
And I think too, and just like you said, to piggyback on that is the more information you can give that closer and their assistant, the better, as far as like,
Mhm.
hey, this is heads up, this is a divorce situation.
Mhm.
Heads up, we have, someone on title that might, be dead or whatever it might be. Those those things that will take time. If you kind of let us know up front, or like, hey, these people are out of state. We
Mhm.
have a mobile, situation. The more that you can communicate and let them know what's going on for the transaction, the better. Because like, for instance, if they're knowing that they're going to have to, mail out or send
Right.
out the papers and things like that, then they can kind of, know that ahead of time that they need to get those papers because it's going to take, overnight. They may have to FedEx it overnight and different things, maybe need to get a notary for them. So all of those things are very, very important. If you think they're even the smallest, just go ahead and communicate them to the title company.
Yeah, because we do pay attention to the timelines in the contract. And so if we're needing the survey in T47 by this date and we haven't gotten it, we're like, hey, it's due by this date. Do you have it? Do we need to order a new one? Is there not one? Well, they're looking for it. Well, okay, how long are we going to keep looking for it, until one needs to be ordered?
Right.
Did that
Okay.
answer that for you?
Yeah, no, that's great. Do agents, do you guys have any other questions? No? Okay, then I had another one.
Okay.
And I think that's my last one, but every time you say something, it makes me think of something else. So I'll
Yeah.
have agents call me and they'll say, okay, I'm about to list a house and I think it's an estate, like the owner died and now the kids are taking care of it. And who do I put on the listing agreement? And I always tell them, you need to figure out who the executor of the estate is or make sure. I said, so I said, that's okay for the purposes of the listing agreement, because that's just a contract between Briggs Freeman and the sellers. But if you get to the point where you're actually going to sign a contract to sell to a third party, you need to make sure that you have the proper seller, right? And that you're not, that the person who's signing the contract to sell the property is authorized to sell the property.
Right.
And I would say, for the purposes of the listing agreement, just get them to sign it and we can always clean it up. But in the meantime, call the title company you're going to use and have them help you flesh it out.
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes they're like, oh, it's easy. It's Serene Khan as executor of this estate. But sometimes you guys need to look at the paperwork and actually see, and it may take a little bit of upfront legwork, right?
Yeah, correct. So one of the things that we do here is if you think you have a file that you're not real sure who the owner is,
Right.
or is it an estate? Did it go to the executor or did it go straight to the heirs? We can go ahead and open title. We can search all that out, address any title issues we may need to take care of before you get that contract. You don't want to get a cash contract that wants to close in 5 days. And then you find out
Yeah.
Right.
that all these things need to be taken care of before we can close. So there's no cost to that. We are happy to open that up, give an overview. We need to do this, this, and this to be able to sell it. And that's just a great tool to get ahead of it.
And
Yeah.
do you know, like, for instance, I know when you get to that, listing table and, one of the red flags is, that you're at the listing table and the wife, that if the husband's, passed, well, I own this, it's no problem, all that. And I can tell you that she truly believes that. And she thinks
Mhm.
that they just don't realize how much goes into a lot of that. So that I always say it's a red flag. It's nothing that that we can't handle.
Right.
It's just, those are the things that you need to, or I'm divorced and I got the house in the divorce. Great. And I think a lot of people think that that's the truth, but we don't know that for sure. So that is one reason to, call us immediately. We'll open that title. I know a lot of title companies are not as generous as far as opening title beforehand, but we are, and we can open that up. We can look at all of it. We can start, working on what we need to work on. Because sometimes it may take, 30 days or, 60 days to get that, all cleared up.
Yeah, that's a real value add. I had a rental, we were going to turn into a rental property under contract once. And we were like a week before closing and the title company called and they were like, there's like 7 other heirs that need to sign and they don't even know what they are. And so the deal died. And I was like, well, good luck to that listing agent getting her like act together and her sellers in order. There's just never going to be able to sell that property. But that's a real value add for you guys to know that a title company upfront, that Independence will like flesh that out for you. The other thing is that right now, no one's really arguing about the title company. They're just choosing whoever the listing agent is. But in the future, when we go back to more normal market where you sometimes do have to negotiate, when you say title's already open with Independence and we have everything squared away there, it's just an arrow in your quiver. So that's really helpful.
Yeah. And we are also seeing a lot of buyers agent, like a lot of our buyer agents are able to direct now more so than before, because their client is actually paying for the title policy in the negotiation, because they're, of course, trying to get that property because they're competing. So a lot of them, the buyers will go in and pay the title. So they, are trying to, take over. So we are seeing a lot more buyer agents recently because the buyers actually paying for titles. So but yes, I mean, anytime you need some help or have any questions, that's one of the things that we truly, and you'll see it once you start, but truly reach out to Laura. She will look it up. She'll flesh it out. She'll figure it out for you. And a lot of times, you just don't know what you don't know. And your client too. That's where I feel like, a lot of agents will be like, well, they said he passed away, and they own it and blah, blah, blah. Well, they truly think that. They just don't know. They have no idea. Like, oh, I have to get these kids to sign this, and things like that. It's very interesting. In fact, we have a class on that about death and divorce.
Divorce. Yeah.
And all that.
And one other good tip, guys, that's helpful to, when you're dealing with, all of our clients are wonderful, of course, but every once in a while you have a client who's like, you're not quite sure about, or it's always very helpful to pull title in advance with a client like that. If you think there may be liens that are a surprise to you or are a surprise to them. The last thing you want to do is get under contract with someone and title pulls and there's like an outstanding tax lien and the seller realizes the sale of the house isn't going to cover it. They're going to have to bring cash and the seller's like, okay, never mind, I'm not selling it. It's like, well, you're under contract to sell it. So that's helpful too if you have a seller that maybe is a little, financially risk open and you want to just make sure that we really know the financials and what they're going to have to pay off at closing.
Right. And I always tell, and I know being a new agent, it seems like a lot and all of that good stuff, but I'm telling you 95% will get closed. It might be delayed, but they will get closed.
Yeah.
So it's very small percentage that don't actually make it. It just always, if you communicate and you communicate with your people too, even if it's delayed, everybody knows their expectations and it will get closed. And we do see, delays and things, but if you have a good title company that's communicating with you and you're communicating with your people, then it just makes the transaction go so much smoother, even when there is some challenges to it. But I always say, 95% of the time they're going to get closed. Don't, totally freak out about it. Just know that, hey, we may have to get an amendment to extend this a little bit.
Awesome.
I have a question. Actually, I was going to ask you about delays. So the first deal that I ever did, the lender really was not on top of it. And we were going to close on whatever day that was, a Wednesday or something. And everything was dated. And we still had my clients come, I represented the buyers and they went in and signed everything, but it didn't get funded until the next day. And I was panicking. I was like, it wasn't in Dallas. It was like Cedar Creek Lake. So we like scrambled to get there before it closed. Like what happens in a situation like that when you're running on a deadline of a particular day and it doesn't happen? Like, just to be prepared. Cause I know this is going to happen sometime and I don't know
Oh,
if that
sure.
works.
It will,
You
for
know?
sure, for
But
sure.
these things go down like that and I don't know like what the penalties are for those kinds of situations. If there is, I don't know.
Right. No, great question. Typically, I'm assuming you probably signed later in the day.
Yeah, it was like right before the office closed.
Yeah.
It was sloppy. It was terrible.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that, I mean, typically I haven't ever seen any penalties or anything of that nature. Because if everybody signs, everybody knows the intent of what's supposed to happen. But if it's late in the day, there's lots of times it won't fund until the next day.
Right.
Either the lender can't get a wire to the title company in time because it's too late in the day. The lender's gone home. We can't get funding from the lender. I mean, there's just lots of different scenarios. So we try to tell people, do you need to fund today, the same day? Then we need to sign early in the day. Or if it's a Friday, maybe we want to try to sign Thursday.
Right.
Yeah.
Friday, it's always Friday
Yes.
could lead to Monday. In this case,
Mhm.
Monday's a holiday, then it leads to Tuesday. And so, yeah, just kind of be aware of that. If it's late in the day, I always give a heads up. Hey, we'll sign you at 4:30, 5 o'clock, but just know it may not fund till the next day.
Yeah.
So not
That
a,
delays possession then, right? That
Yeah.
would be the thing. Okay.
And guys, that's why I don't recommend closing on Fridays. Because
Right,
you get a
exactly.
hiccup, then you're stuck the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So that's just something to kind of consider. So one last thing, just the passing off of keys. Like, how do you guys recommend? That's just a basics of closing, but what's the best way you guys think to do that for possession and keys and
yeah. I mean, if they're left here with us, we don't release them until funding unless the agent has specifically given me instructions to release them. We don't release them until funding. Sometimes people will just leave them in the house and they can get in through the lockbox that
Mhm.
way.
Yes.
We see
I think
all
that's
kinds
more
of-
standard. Usually people just leave the keys in
Yeah.
the key box, but sometimes with a lot of leasebacks, you don't do this, you're not doing this as often for your
Right,
first
right.
deals, but, an agent will either take the keys out of the key box, take them to the title company, and the title company will deliver them once closed and funded. Of course, title companies are offices that close. so,
Right.
Like to Sarah's point, so you have to wait till the next day, or you can leave them in the key box and tell the agent, you can go get it out of the key box once it's funded, or you can meet them there, whatever. You just have to that's just one more piece to coordinate at closing.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. Does anyone else have a question? That was a good question, Sarah.
Yes, it was.
No. Well, thank you guys so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Please.
Michelle, if you and I want to connect over email, I can share with everyone with our whole agent basics group when I share the link to the recording and also all y'all's contact information so that they can reach
Perfect.
out to you.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, call us anytime. We can help.
Yes, and
Okay.
we'll send, I'll get all the names and emails and things like that are on here, so we can follow up with all the information behind.
Perfect.
Okay.
That is great.
Thank you for the
Thank you
opportunity.
guys so
We
much.
really
Appreciate
Thank
you.
everybody.
Yes.
See y'all next week. Is how to do it's the marketing class, marketing 101. So we'll see you guys all next week. Thanks so much.